Thank you, Chairman Buckley. I appreciate you and the thoughtful explanations that you have. You know, sometimes bills have unintended consequences, so I want to ask you a series of questions to really alleviate some concerns that many of my constituents and stakeholders have that this bill has a discriminatory impact, okay? And so, are you aware that in Indiana, researchers have concluded that the introduction of vouchers in 2013 has increasingly benefited higher income white students, many of whom are already in private schools, and diverts funding from all other students who remain in public schools in the school system? Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of the individual demographics of participants in Indiana.
Okay. Are you aware that simply an analysis from an Ohio newspaper using data provided by the Ohio Department of Education found that the state's voucher programs disproportionately served white students? Are you aware of that?
I am not.
Are you aware of the Century Foundation report reviewing the impact of private school vouchers nationwide found that voucher programs are more likely to increase school segregation than to promote integration or maintain the status quo? Are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar because we don't have a system in Texas.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Texas. Are you aware that currently Texas private schools disproportionately serve Anglo students? Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of the demographics of our private schools.
Well, here are some of the demographic data that I found. That according to the most recent data, white students are the majority population in private schools in Texas, comprising 55% in 2022 as compared to 26% in public schools. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of that, like I said, demographic data concerning private schools.
Are you aware that African American and Latino students attend private schools at lower rates than Anglo students? Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of those demographics.
And the data that I received showed that only 13% of public school population in Texas are
Gentleman's
Black.
time has expired.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Reynolds, for what purpose?
motion to extend the time.
Members, you've heard the motion. Is there objection? The chair hears none. The gentleman's time is extended.
Thank you. Chairman Buckley, are you aware of data that shows that 13% of the public school population in Texas is Black and 53% of the public school population is Latino? Are you aware of those statistics?
Was that public schools?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay. And are you aware that only 6% of private schools are African American populated students and 23% of Hispanic students in private schools? Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of those demographics.
Okay. Does it concern you that, let me strike that, has this body adequately considered the very likely possibility that this legislation will disproportionately benefit white students and create more segregation in our schools?
That is not the intent of this legislation. It's my intent that this gives every Texas family the opportunity to select the education that is the best fit for their child.
What protections does this bill have to ensure that we don't fund segregation in our public schools?
Yeah. When you look across all the states, first of all, there's throughout the process, there's no discrimination on who can apply and such. But we also find that across the country, when you look at programs, that you see significant populations of Hispanics and African Americans that attend private school and that are accessing through ESA programs. And the intent of this bill is to give parents, regardless of immutable characteristics, the opportunity to access the education that's best for their child, Mr. Reynolds. That's what this bill does.
So, Chairman Buckley, when I looked at the proposed section 29.370 of the bill, which establishes an annual reporting requirement for each certified educational assistance organization, I see that subsection 1 requires educational assistance programs to collect and compile data regarding program applications disaggregated by age, but not by any other factors outlined in proposed section 29.3715. Isn't that correct?
The intent of the section is to make sure that the report reports back to the legislature of the participants in the program.
Okay. And I'm just trying to make sure that there wasn't a drafting error. Can you explain why other factors such as disability, status, or race, gender, socioeconomic status are not included in this annual reporting requirement for this application?
Well, the application process would certainly require verifying disability status because one of the priority groups. But again, the process and the reporting is required to make certain that we know who is accessing the program.
Is it your intention, or it's my understanding, is your intention that this legislation be a universal voucher, correct?
Yes, every Texas family is eligible to apply given the eligibility requirements.
And so your goal, as you just expressed, is to increase the opportunity for all students, including marginalized students, correct?
Absolutely.
So we have heard many concerns from a variety of stakeholders about the potential discriminatory impact from this legislation. Do you agree with me that one way that we could mitigate these concerns would be to monitor and evaluate which students are having success in exercising their right to receive funding for their preferred private school and which ones are not? Wouldn't that be helpful?
I believe that it is important that the program reports information about students and primarily that it provides access to all students, and it does. There is no Texas student that is not eligible.
Chairman Buckley, are you
Yeah. And
aware
yeah.
of the Texas Bill of Rights?
Yeah. Well, let me bring you to the report that must include the following demographic information: the child's grade, the child's age, the child's sex, the child's race or ethnicity, the school district in which the child resides, the district campus that the child would otherwise attend, the child's zip code, the date of enrollment in the program. All of that is reported by the comptroller based upon the bill.
Thank you. I'm making a note of that.
Yeah, 35 of the bill. Yeah, page 35 of the bill.
So, with respect to the students who can be denied admittance from private schools, you do know that there are different requirements for admittance from a public school versus a private school, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it true that a private school may deny a student admission on the basis of their religious practices or identity? Isn't that correct?
No, that simply private schools will make parents aware of certain religious requirements or certain religious activities, and the parent can decide whether or not they would like their child to attend.
Isn't it true that 75% of private schools in Texas are religious?
I'm not sure of that breakdown, but that's probably about right.
Okay. But you don't have any evidence to dispute that, would you?
I don't.
In other words, is it almost certain that the state will be funding religious discrimination to the tunes of millions of dollars that would otherwise be going to our public schools, which are constitutionally prohibited from discriminating against any student for any reason, correct?
The private schools will not discriminate based on that, and I don't believe that makes that bears itself out, that it's religious, that's discriminatory based on religious tests.
If it's a Christian private school, do they have to admit a Muslim private school student?
I'm sorry?
If it's a Christian private school, do they have to admit a student that is a Muslim student? Do they have to admit that student to their school?
Yeah. They will make sure that that's a fit. They'll advise parents of the requirements of that student to attend that school, and that's the way the process works.
Isn't it true that a private school may deny admission on the basis of a disability?
No, we've hashed this out in our committee hearings. That's a great question, by the way. What private schools do is they make certain that they can provide the services that are necessary to serve that child. And we have we have 60-something private schools in Texas that are accredited to make sure that they particularly serve children with special needs, and including one in my own district. And we even had testimony from families that had applied to certain schools, and they would say, you know what, there might be a better private school option, and they would give parents an option because they want to make sure it fits for the kid. They understand that if they can't provide the services they think, but they know an additional school or another school could do that, then they direct the parent that direction.
But isn't it true that private schools are not required to provide language access services to emergent bilingual students?
Private schools in our Catholic system and others have very robust and rich language courses and the ability. I mean, if you look at our Spanish speakers and stuff in our Catholic schools, there are, I don't know the exact percentage, but I do know that it's a large percentage of students that speak other languages other than English.
Isn't it true that a private school may deny a student admission on the basis of their gender?
Well, there are some schools that are sort of set up to be either all male or all female, but that is, again, and that's a parent has that, they have that right to decide, and they'll choose the right one based on the child's gender.
Could the private school also deny student admission based on sexual orientation or gender identity?
I'm not advised about that.
Given the multiple and often intersecting ways of this legislation will find discrimination, how does it comply with the Texas Constitution's equal educational opportunity mandate?
This bill provides every Texas parent, every single one of them, an option to apply for an education savings account and take their child to the setting that fits them best. Mr. Reynolds, what's so fundamentally different about what we're doing here is we're empowering parents to make those decisions, and we're giving them options. And I think what's even more important, they will receive options that best fits their child.
Thank you, Chairman Buckley.
Thank you.
The gentleman's time has expired.